All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Dr. Arti Jagirdar. Arti, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. If you can let our listeners know, where are you located?
I'm in New York City. I'm in Manhattan.
Nice. Okay. And the weather like that right now, or the weather right now, because Tuesday you
Mhm.
were telling me you had a snow day.
We did. And today is a bit of a sort of polar vortex situation. I was out in my ankle length white down coat, which looks a little bit like I'm wearing a comforter with a belt around it, but I was very cozy. And I live on the block that the practice is on. So it felt a little absurd, like a bit of an overreaction to walk the 70 feet from my front door to the practice. But I'm from the South and my family are from a fairly tropical place, and I can't abide the cold.
Yeah. No, interesting. And something you mentioned before we were recording, you let your team off, right? Like, hey, stay home. It's a snow day. How far do they live from the practice?
They are in Queens and Brooklyn, pretty far into Queens and Brooklyn, like kind of end of the line, one with a longer bus transfer. The snow was definitely worse out in the boroughs. We tend to run a little warmer in the city. I think between the rivers that are running on either side and all the asphalt that soaks up the heat from the sun during the day, it
Yeah.
didn't seem as bad here. So we had a snow day. I kind of made the call early in the morning. I didn't want them traveling if it seemed unsafe, and still had a couple patients on my schedule that I was able to see on my own. But that's what happens when you live in the Northeast sometimes.
Yeah. Now, when you say on your own, like it was completely just you in the office?
Just me in the office, correct.
Interesting. So when you're working on a patient, phones ring, do the phones ring and all that other stuff, or is somebody else
I put
answering?
it, no, I mean, we have voicemail. There's like an answering service, and we can set it to send an automatic text back to them. So right now, I mean, it's a low volume practice. Like as a fee for service office, it's not a whole bunch of calls, and we've set ourselves up to make it very convenient to do things online. Our patients text us, they email us, they can schedule online, they can reschedule online. So it's not a place where the phones are off the hook.
Gotcha. Okay. So then tell us a little bit about your past, your present. How did you get to where you are today?
When you had said this was a question that you always ask, I thought about it, and I would say that where I am now and who I am now is most informed by my own upbringing as the child of immigrants, as the child of entrepreneurs themselves. When I was in college, I always said I wanted to be a doctor. Then in high school, I realized dentistry was it for me. But at some point, I just met people, learned about ideas, and really grew to love art. And so I spent 2 years after college building a fine art portfolio to apply to art school. And I came back to dentistry happily. I really enjoy taking care of myself. I enjoy having a small business. Obviously, having financial security is very nice. But art is a kind of a way of life. So having had that past and that interest continues to inform everything I do today. The other couple things that I think have been very formative are becoming a mother. My kids are 5 and 7. I grew up in a small business. I wanted my kids to grow up seeing what that was about, seeing what it meant to be at the helm of caring for people, of caring for your employees who depend on you for your livelihood, for contributing to the well-being of a community. As dentists, we get to take care of people, and sort of like I want to raise the bar and what that can look like. And finally, most recently, I think the largest sort of formative experience was open heart surgery. I had like a full sternotomy, open heart surgery following the discovery that I had a regurgitant in my mitral valve. I'm completely fine now, but I had multiple complications. My vocal cord was paralyzed. I had multiple strokes that left to a little bit of blindness in my left eye. Having been a patient so thoroughly has made me a better doctor. I really know what it looks like to care for people. One of the main things that came out of that is I pride myself on being incredibly compassionate, empathetic. I always have been, but it used to feel like something that would tire me out. And when I first started practicing, I would work 6, 7 days a week, paying off loans. I was saving for CE. I spent $30,000 on CE my first year out. I just was like gunning to be the best possible dentist I could be. And then I realized, like, you leave your 20s, you're entering your 30s. I'm in my 40s now. I didn't have that energy. And I would feel like at the end of the third day, starting my fourth day, I wasn't able to treat people with as much patience, as much compassion as I could take pride in. And I really worked to make those days that I was in the office the most sort of efficient, I guess. Like I still could make what I made in
Mhm.
5 days a week, working 3 days a week, becoming a more comprehensive treatment planner, things like that. But following open heart surgery, I felt as though instead of being a reservoir of compassion that I was like spending and needing to recharge from, I now feel as though I am an instrument for compassion, the sort of like love that's available to all of us, sort of cosmically, which sounds a
Mhm.
little woo woo, but it doesn't take anything out of me to extend empathy, patience to people who are coming to me in fear and pain. That has been something that I can't exactly articulate properly of how that came about from open heart surgery, but I don't tire of it. That's new.
Interesting. How long ago was that?
That was in 20, we're coming up on 5 years. March 12th will be 5 years.
Okay. So that was 2020, 2020. Okay. Oh, so like a little bit, well, a year before the shutdown and everything.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we had also talked about is what are things that have happened that you didn't plan or didn't go the way you wanted them to go. And I started the process of building my own practice in early 2020. I had engaged Rob Montgomery to create two legal entities, one for the practice, one for a nonprofit. I had been working with a real estate agent, Reed Risley, who just does like medical dental spaces, and we were narrowing down spaces. And then the pandemic happened. And I was kind of like,
Mhm.
this seems like an uphill climb. And the silver lining looking back on it, at that time, my kids were 1.5 and 3. And so to be there for those ages, and now they're in elementary school and they're out of the house longer. There's no diapers, there's no bottles, there's no sort of like the emotional complications of teenagehood. I can't say this is probably the best time I could lean into things. They don't need me as much. We're not into like the teenage trouble years. So
Mhm.
the work is to like build more systems, to have sort of like layers of management, other doctors in place that I can have more freedom to be with my family again. So it really was like good timing to take it easy and be back with them a little bit more when I think they'll need me to be more hands on.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So if we can rewind a little bit, you said you decided to learn, actually, you said dentistry it was it for you in high
Mhm.
school. And then you learned about ideas. What ideas?
Art to me is about ideas. I only hang original art from artists on the walls, and it's more about like it's artists that I've met. They are friends of friends, or I meet them at an event, or I go to a gallery opening and meet a different artist. And I'm interested in that person and their vision and what they are saying, their commentary. It doesn't have as much to do with what the art looks like. I mean, I like aesthetically pleasing art, certainly. Like, I'm not going to hang anything scary up on the walls of a dental
Mhm.
practice. And this practice has been built to be very relaxing. Like, I've thought a lot about what people are seeing and hearing and feeling to really create a relaxing environment. So, I'm not going to bring art in that kind of doesn't gel with that. But to me, it's about ideas. I think art is very important on the like pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It exists at the top. Dentistry is interesting because it also can exist at the top. We're helping people with their self expression, with their confidence. When patients come in to ask me, should I get veneers? I say first is like Invisalign an option, whitening an option. What can we get you that's a little bit more, conservative? But if veneers is the right option for that patient and they're asking me, is it worth it? That to me is a very subjective answer. And one of the sort of like goalposts for me is, are you expressing your joy freely? Because life is hard enough. Like if you want to
Mhm.
laugh, if you are smiling in a picture with your mom, with your kids, with friends, let it rip. Like express your joy. That's really important to me. And that exists at that self actualization top of the pyramid. But what I love about dentistry is so much of what we do is like under basic needs. I think we'll always have a job, people have teeth.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that well, like really take care of people and get them to a healthy place is kind of what I'm foundational on.
Is that part of your guys' like marketing message or mission statement? Are you expressing your joy freely?
I am. I've changed through the months. We've been open 4 months now. So it's a
Hmm.
very, very new practice. And, under Instagram, it's like, what do you want to put in your bio? And people are like, oh, you got to put things in there that people are going to search for and whatever. And I'm just not, I don't know. I'm not winning the SEO game. I'm winning the word of mouth game.
Mhm.
So the Instagram bio right now is something like guided by wellness, curating a relaxing experience, which is very accurate of what we do. I talk about the oral microbiome. I talk about airway. I talk about sort of the mouth body connection and getting people to a place where they have something really beautiful that is very healthy, that is maintained with hopefully very little intervention. That's the goal.
Okay, that's interesting. And then we fast forward a little bit. You talk about the open heart surgery, what you had. That led, now, was that at all anyway because of like high induced stress or anything like that? Or no, it was just.
Not that I know of. I never had a heart murmur before. I went in for a physical when we were trying for our second child. I realized it had been 3 years between like, being pregnant, having the baby. The baby is a year old. I'm suddenly like, wait, I haven't seen my primary care physician. And when she listened to my heart, she was like, this is a very clear murmur. And as dentists, obviously, we know what that's supposed to sound like. Instead of a lub dub, it was a lub swoosh, a very clear swoosh. And a severe regurgitation, there was essentially a cord that had torn inside of my heart. I have 2 family members, a first cousin and her daughter, who have Marfan syndrome, which is thought to be, it's a connective tissue disorder. It definitely affects the heart. They always end up needing heart valve surgery. My cousins have. And I wonder if there's some sort of maybe like recessive, very minute expression of some of that genetics, but it's not well understood. And I've talked to like genetic counselors about it and whatever. But anyway, so I go in for this physical. We hear the murmur. She refers me for an echocardiogram. At that time, I knew I was pregnant. I had been like very, very early pregnant for my physical. Went into this echocardiogram, and I knew it couldn't be good news because my doctor called me twice at 8 a.m. the following morning. And they're normally like, your doctor will get in touch with you within the next week with your results. But if they call you on your cell phone twice at 8 a.m., it's not the best news. So I remember I was feeding my daughter breakfast. I missed the call and I went running to get my cell phone, and she immediately called me back. And she had told me, like, you really need to see. And I had told her, like, oh, now I know that I'm like 6 weeks pregnant or something. And she was like, you need to see a cardiologist before the end of the week. Again, it was a snowstorm and I was at home, like with my daughter. I kept her on the days when I wasn't working. And so I had to take her with me. I was told, like, I'm going to have open heart surgery. So I went through my entire second pregnancy knowing I would have to have this surgery, which is very scary. I think the one thing that I have not recovered from fully emotionally is saying goodbye to my kids potentially, because they were so little. My son was 8 months old. My daughter was 2. They were so young that they wouldn't remember me. And I wanted to make sure that I had imparted something that I would have wanted them to know and learn. And certainly, like, I can't imagine either of my children on their wedding day not having read something from me. Like, if they went into their adulthood thinking my mom knew she was going into this, she knew there was a chance she wouldn't wake up. She didn't leave anything for us. It was such a just like, that is torture. That is the worst kind of grief. And I still am not over that. The rest of it, I'm like over it. Like, shit happens and you're going to have to bleep that out. I think that with the emotional burden of going through this, the fear myself that I might die, it wasn't for me. Like, I have lived so much. I've backpacked through Asia for 8 months. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I ran marathons. Like, I did so many things in my life, like anything that I set out to do. Met fascinating people, ate amazing meals. There's nothing that I left unsaid to anyone. Like, I was okay. I'm okay with my own mortality as an individual, but to bring children into this world and not be around to help guide them through it, that's a responsibility I take very seriously. So that was the hardest part of it that I'm still recovering from.
Did you leave them like something or no? Or
oh yeah. I wrote those notes. I had to write those letters. It was very grief-inducing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
and it helped me like be a better friend to people going through difficult things. Like, I can show up for people in a way that people showed up for me. I know what support looks like. So I think I'm a silver linings person. I'm always looking for like, here's what I got out of that I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful for the experience, like facing your own mortality, like in your 30s and being left for the most part fully intact is a very powerful lesson. And it's not a lesson you can really get without going through it. So I'm in a way, like, I wouldn't wish it to happen again, but I am grateful for it.
And so is that what you kind of, I guess, like, not pull out, but like dig down deep? Because you said around the 3rd day or 4th day, you realized that you're like, okay, I'm lacking empathy or compassion here for the patients, right? Like, it's getting shorter. So I guess instead of saying, I'm only going to work 3 days, you continued, right? But now you have that, I guess, that reservoir of compassion that you said, right?
I don't dig deep. It happens without effort now. It used to feel like it took effort, and now it's just our true nature as human beings is to care for one another. And that's just available to me with no effort.
Mm-hmm. So that now happens to you. So if I were to ask you like, hey, I get that on the second day, I get that on a Tuesday, do I have to figure something? What would you recommend for someone like that on how to like, hey, produce more compassion this way?
That's a great question. It's like I said, going through the experiences I've gone through, there's kind of no replacement for the teachable moments of such a difficult experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really thought about how somebody else might find it. I read a lot of philosophy books. I read a lot of self-development books. Some of the books that have been very impactful for me are Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I give it away all the time. Another book is Ernest Becker's Denial of Death. And I read that for the first time more than 20 years ago and continue to recommend it to people, reread it. A book I read almost every day. A friend of mine who's an actor gave me The Artist's Way. And again, it's about ideas, about a way of being. So I think figuring out the pulse on like your own authenticity, it won't come easily. I think getting in touch with pure human nature and what that means for you is kind of the work.
Mm-hmm.
For me, at the bottom of that is just love for people and gratitude for the opportunity to take care of them. So I would say that there's probably work to be done. I would recommend some books. Mm-hmm. One of the things about Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning that I come back to all the time is it's asking, people are asking, what is the meaning of life? And his answer in sort of like the too long didn't read version is life is asking you, what are you going to make it mean? So you get to decide.
Yeah. How are you going to do that? Okay, interesting. So then that kind of leads me to, we fast forward a little bit more. And in here, you said you were working, right? While you were your first child. Then you had to, were you working as an associate?
I was working as an associate. I took 6 months off. I took 8 months off, actually, in that position. This is a big group practice in Manhattan. And the owner of the practice is this really lovely man. However, he hadn't had so many female associates. And I think the one that was already there, her kids were a little older. And so, he brought me in his office and he was like, listen, I know that you're expecting a baby. I hope that you don't plan to take off more than 3 months. It's really not going to work. If you take off more than that, it's like a continuity of care issue. Your patients start to sort of like leave you and your practice and go to other doctors. And, I said to him, I was like, honestly, like motherhood is the most important job that I'll have as a human being. And if me leaving is disruptive to your business, I completely understand. Please move on. And if there's still a position for me, I'll be in touch when I'm ready. If not, I totally understand. You have to do what's right for your business. And he just kind of looked at me and like blinked a few times. And he was like, come back when you're ready. And because I was the most profitable associate in that practice. It is, I sort of have like had this narrative a bit that feminism has let me down. Like you have to be so good. Like I have to know I'm the best. I'm making them a lot of money to be able to ask for this like very basic thing of like bringing new humans into the world. Like we got to repopulate the earth somehow. And so like smart, nice people should be having babies. So one of the things I'm like a huge advocate for is with my team, I mentor students, like what does it look like to have a family and to sort of like hope for a better future for our children.
So I was talking to a listener, dentist, the other day, and she's been running her practice for 8 years. Rock solid systems, great team, but then she told me something pretty wild. She ran a quick search on net32.com just to double check a supply she orders all the time. And they were the same gloves, same brand, but the price was half of what she'd been paying. And here's the kicker. She'd been loyal to the same vendor for years, never questioned it. And honestly, she's not alone. Tons of practices are probably overpaying and don't even know it. You're probably overpaying and you don't even know it. So before you place your next order, try this. Search just one product on Net32. It's free, no login, takes 10 seconds or less. You might realize you've been losing thousands of dollars quietly. So go to net32.com/dental marketer. That's net32.com/dental marketer. And just check, just search one product and see the transparency, the comparison, and the money you will be saving. Okay, interesting. So then why? How did you become the most profitable associate in that practice?
I went out of residency knowing I wanted to be the best dentist I could be. And I took, at that time, Frank Spear was one of the best. It was like him and Kois. And I'm starting all of the Kois. I signed up for the first 4 classes. I take my first Kois class in September. So I've always leaned into like whatever the best CE is. And at that time, Frank Spear was a great series. I went out to Scottsdale, Arizona 5 times to complete their hands-on courses in the first 2 years, basically out of residency. So it wasn't that I was doing full mouth rehabilitation off the bat. It's like I can talk about why a night guard would be beneficial, at a time when maybe other dentists have talked about it. I'm talking to them about how it's designed, how we are getting the muscles to just sort of disengage, why, the cracking is happening of the molars, and people start to understand and they start to believe in what we're able to offer as comprehensive dentists. It can look as simple as like knowing why my 2 anterior crowns aren't going to break because I know what an envelope of function is, or why my number 15 crown fits because I didn't lose the space. It's the first point of contact in CR. Like I knew all of the foundational things of occlusion, of function, aesthetic, airway, so TMJ, so that I could do even that single tooth dentistry in a way that would be reliable. So I think patients understood that I knew what I was talking about and had trust in me because I can say it confidently. I believe in it. I have never tried to sell anyone anything. I'm truly taking a stand for what's right and what's good and meeting the patient at wherever their values are, wherever their finances are. So it becomes apparent. I mean, that's one of the good things about dentistry is like remaining authentic and investing in your skill set will only yield returns.
So then break it down to me. How would you, I guess, talk to a patient who's, I got to talk it over with my husband, or I got to talk it over with my wife, or I have to see something else, right? Obviously, I feel like you're the type of person who'd be like, yeah, go ahead, talk it over, right? Like, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But then I feel like we also get the flip side, Arti, where it's like, hey, no, you got to make sure you sell that. Get a closing, get something, right?
I don't do that.
So then how do we, talk to me about your way then? How can we learn your way where it's like, hey, they don't feel pressured?
It's a long game. It's playing the long game. It's, people don't like being sold to. They know when they're being sold to. And being a fee-for-service startup practice in the heart of Manhattan that looks the way it looks, they attract a certain kind of clientele. They're very savvy. They have money. If they want to spend it, they'll spend it. You pushing them is not going to help anything. So it's actually going to turn them away. It's people who are sold to all the time, people who are asked for their money for a variety of causes. Like, I think everyone doesn't like that. They don't want to feel like they're at a used car sales lot, or this is their health. So if I really believe that what I'm doing is the best for them, and that comes across because I believe fully, I'm like, I have full transparency, that's fine. I had a consultation with a patient today that was referred to me by a periodontist who ended up saying, well, I actually want to go with this oral surgeon, and I was talking to her about I place implants. We have PRP here. I was like, we also do this. And then I can print something same day, print a Maryland bridge for her out of resin. So that's a really great temporary restorative option for me to be able to control that whole process in the office. And went over it with her. And I said, I understand that your surgeon has placed this implant for you in the past elsewhere. I'm happy to collaborate with him. It does, whatever I can do to take care of you, that's it. I'd love to get an intraoral scan in case he needs something from me. Here's why I think a bonded Maryland bridge is better over an extraction site, an immediate implant than a Valplast denture. And I'm here for you, And she, as she was leaving, she's like, can I give you the surgeon's cell phone number? Do you mind talking to him? Like, I'd love to figure this out. And I'm like, sure. Like, maybe she'll come back. Maybe she won't. It's not about what's happening today, closing today. Some of my patients, I talked to them about Invisalign. They come back 3 years later, they're doing their Invisalign. Meanwhile, they're sending you more patients. They're continuing with their treatment plans. They're continuing with their recall appointments. So to not push the sale, like we have some things that we do where if that patient leaves and say, I need to talk to my husband about it, we're going to email them the payment link for their treatment plan. They can pay their $5,000, $6,000, $11,000. Here's the link to Cherry if you want to finance it out. It's available to them. We make it very easy, but there's no like, if you do it now, I'll give you 5% off. I don't like that stuff. Like, I don't want patients making a big decision feeling pressured.
Yeah, of a percentage. Got you. Okay. Are you still working at the associateship or no?
No, I pretty much like went off on my own kind of immediately.
Ah, okay, interesting. So then from that associateship, were there any systems that you were like, oh, I love what they're doing here. I'm going to take this into my practice, maybe add my spin on it. And were there any systems where you're like, I hate this. This is all wrong right here, what you're doing?
Yeah, one of the practices is amazing. Dr. Michael Wynn, he owns Queensboro Plaza Dental Care. I was in his office. He has done Spear. He trained in a perio program for a while, taught at the implant program at NYU, an amazing, amazing dentist. He uses the Spear videos for sort of like patient education, for post-op instruction. The patients automatically get a visit summary. They get their post-op video emailed to them. So there's no sort of like questions that they're like thinking, what was that? And it's a great like video sort of image of it. He had a lot of really great systems in place that I have started to incorporate in my practice. And the other practice I was in, Dr. Alina Lane, All Smiles Dentistry, she did sort of these like airway consultations and was a great Invisalign dentist. There's a lot of things that she's done that I've incorporated into the practice. And I've been really fortunate to find good mentors. So I try to pass that on. There's a saying that's if you're going somewhere, make sure you take other people with you. And I'm a big believer in that. So and they both of those individuals have continued to be very sort of generous with their time. If my patients come looking for me, they give them my information. Those patients come to me here. So it's been I have a very collaborative experience with the other doctors. Before you ask some of the things I wouldn't do, I think, they are both in network offices, and being in network leads you to have a high volume hygiene program. And instead of I'm not so interested in having like a busy practice. Sometimes I think there can be comfort in seeing volume just like visually for doctors. I'm a numbers person. Like I have a lot of metrics. My marketing agency tracks ROI on marketing spending. Anything we do in office, we have spreadsheets for ROI. Like I'm very into metrics. So the use of time in network practice in these hygiene departments to me makes no sense. It seems like a loss leader for many people. And I'm not in the business of doing dentistry for free. So that would be something that is very different in my practice.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, like, what type of practice do you have? But it's fee for service general, right?
It's fee for service general. And I've done a lot of CE. So we're doing some things that might be considered a little advanced.
Like what?
I work with ENTs, sleep doctors, pulmonologists to make mandibular advancement devices to treat sleep apnea. These are patients who either wouldn't qualify for a sleep PAP because their sleep apnea is quite mild, or they are just not compliant. They've gone through all the various options and make it very clear to those patients, listen, this is the gold standard for you, but I'd much rather you wear a mandibular advancement device every night than wear your CPAP half the time or less. A lot of patients wear it even less. So that's something that I got even more interested in as a cardiac patient myself. The risk of myocardial infarction is increased by a factor of 8, something like that. In patients who have sleep apnea, it's very, very stressful for the body. We see bruxism all the time. We're making these night guards, and that's like a Band-Aid on what's happening. It's going to protect the teeth from breaking, but it's like, well, why is it happening? Like the body's really stressed out. And it's coming up in ways that we can see visually. But if I'm looking back into someone's airway and it's a crowded airway and they have hypertension and they're grinding their teeth, I'm going to ask those questions. So certainly that we started to incorporate airway into the practice is something that's been quite meaningful for me. I talk about the link between oral health and systemic health. Most recently in the last couple of weeks, one of my patients, her gut health has deteriorated drastically in the last 6 months or so. She has IBS. She's noticed weight gain. Her periodontal disease has come to the point where she has one hopeless tooth that has to be extracted. And this is someone who had been going to the dentist every 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, quite religiously. So, she had no idea that there was a link between periodontal disease and gut issues. Another patient has rheumatoid arthritis, was overdue for her cleaning by quite a bit, had some like deeper probing depths, bleeding gums. What the inside of your mouth looks like can be what your gut looks like. It's the same tube. So a lot of people come in and they've been going to dentists every 6 months and they're like, no one ever told me this. And just today we delivered perio trays for a patient who had juvenile periodontitis, and we're maintaining 6 millimeter probing depths. And I'm talking to this patient about how we get hydrogen peroxide at the bottom of these probing depths, and It kills the bad bacteria and promotes more of the good bacteria to grow. So it's like 15 minutes when you're in the shower, when you're getting ready, wear these trays every morning, and let's try and maintain things. So these are all things that, and there's a lot more that we do that's a little bit sort of more than maybe like a normal general dental practice. I myself like surgery. I have a CBCT. I like placing implants. I like grafting bone. I did aesthetic crown lengthening by myself on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Somebody had altered passive eruption. She had 4 crowns on her front teeth. One of them has failed. So I'm saying to her, if we're replacing this anyway, let's lift up the tissue, get that bone back to the level that it's supposed to be. The bone was at the level of the enamel, and we really need about 3 millimeters of space to show all the enamel in her mouth. So that's looking really great. I texted her that night, texted her the following morning. She's like, the swelling is minimal. The pain has been minimal. I had a little bit of bleeding when I brushed. I've been eating normally. Like I love surgery. I think part of it is something that's really hard for patients to get through, and I can get them through difficult things fairly well. I think that's one of my skill sets. We plumb the practice with nitrous oxide. It's like, again, all about like, how can we curate a relaxing experience, given that these are hard things that we're doing. I am in touch with a couple of doctors that do sedation. So that's on the table for some of our patients that are a little bit more phobic. So I share all this to say, when I say that we do things that are a little bit more than maybe a regular general dental practice, this is what I'm talking about.
You do a lot.
I do. It's things, it's just like where my own curiosity has led me to. And I love my specialists. We need our specialists.
Yeah.
You will never find me doing endo. Like, thank God for endodontists. Thank God for pediatric dentists. I joke that every kid I've seen has been against my will. My friends are like, you got to see the family. And I'm like, fine. They're great kids. I love them. But thank you, pediatric dentists, for what you do.
Thanks for what you guys do.
Thank you.
I know. Interesting. So then it's very specific, some of the procedures. So let me ask, what does your marketing and advertising look like? Like, what are you doing, and how are these patients finding you besides referrals?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing right now. We're going to start doing more. Having been a dentist in the city for over a decade, I had a following, and I'm very plugged into my community. I volunteer a lot. I am very involved at our preschool and at our ongoing K through 12 school. So I know a lot of parents. They've become my good friends in the ways in which I've supported other people's small businesses. They've supported mine. I had an open house for all my family and friends early on. I hired a bartender and a doorman and a coat check girl. And we bought like cases of Boo champagne, and we just made it nice. And it was like, here's what's going on here. I don't expect anyone to change their existing dentist, but some people did. Other people referred other patients to me. So it's been word of mouth. We do make an effort to collect Google reviews. I think as of today, we have 51 5-star reviews. So we are making that effort. And I'll keep like, people don't know unless you make an effort to put yourself out there. So what that looks like for me is someone makes a recommendation. They're going to say, what does their Instagram look like? What are their reviews like? What is their website like? Like, all that needs to be in order. What I'm working on now is like more of like thought leadership, where we have talking on a podcast is, I know that we met because Ruben of Dark Horse sort of set you my way, but kind of getting out there more and talking about some of these ideas that I have, mentoring students. If somebody needs a quote in a magazine about dentistry, like going about being that person that talks about that. So becoming a quote thought leader, it puts you in a certain like strata of like, okay, you're a fee for service doctor. You do these things that other dentists don't do. Who are you to say that this is necessary? You kind of have to build a case for yourself. So right now the work is we've been sort of word of mouth. Another open house event I had was with all of my professional network, doctors, dentists, specialists. That was, I think, like 70-ish people. And a lot of my best referrals have been from other doctors and endodontists that I've become very good friends with, who, when she has a patient that's unattached to a general dentist, always sends that patient my way. They become my comprehensive patients and stay on. The periodontist that referred a patient on to me, who is now going to go elsewhere. Again, another unattached patient. So and like my orthodontist friends, their patients will wander in off the street, or another referral, and they need dental clearance. We've created now these like gift baskets and referral pads. We're starting like a ground marketing campaign, introducing ourselves to the buildings next to us, the businesses in those buildings, doctors in the area, with a referral pad for surgical clearance. So orthopedic doctors, cardiovascular doctors, anybody that we can think of, like those patients need clearance, here's a really easy way for you to get them to us. We'll make it affordable. And those patients are going to need ongoing care. So those are some of the ideas that we've had moving forward. But up until now, and we've broken even since month one, it's been word of mouth. Yeah. And word of mouth is great. I was telling my patient this morning that patients who find me randomly are, while wonderful, are kind of like, what's going on here? Like, no one does this stuff. A practice doesn't look like this. And I'm like, the vibe's the vibe, you know? So like when someone finds you word of mouth, it's like, they get the vibe. So it's the cheapest form of marketing and it's the most powerful form of marketing. So we'll ask patients, like, tell your friends. And I kind of don't have to say it. Like, we make it memorable enough that they tell people. You know, I've always like given my cell phone number to patients on surgical post-ops. It's typed out at the bottom of the page. Here's my cell phone number. Literally every single patient has the ability to text me at any time. I spent the Super Bowl taking care of a patient with dry socket, like my longtime patient. And luckily I don't care about football, so it's fine. And I live on this block. I walked over in my sweatpants. It was great.
Yeah. Interesting.
But the level of service, like, you know, that gives me peace of mind. Like, that's what makes me feel like I did a good job. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants a fee-for-service practice. They don't want to handhold this way. They don't want to be, you know, getting text messages at 10 p.m. To me, I like doing that. I like knowing someone's been taken care of to that degree.
So would you say for anyone who wants to, because I've heard this where they're like, hey, accept insurance at the beginning and then drop it so you can be fee for service. But for people who do want to be fee for service from the get-go, would you say it takes this type of level of compassion and commitment where it's like 24 hours, but whenever kind of thing, you got to be on and you got to be compassionate about it?
I mean, I have excellent personal boundaries, I will say. Right now, we work 3.5 days a week. I have my schedule worked around when we have like the parent visits at school every Wednesday morning. I am home in time. Hopefully I'll start making dinner again. But like the goal is every morning school drop off, every evening dinner as a family, and working 3.5 days a week. So I actually maintain very good personal boundaries. It's not that hard to me to respond to a text message and just give someone peace of mind. It's very, very rare that that's like the first time ever that I've come in on a weekend for an emergency. Usually people are kind of like, you know, I can wait until Monday morning. I can this, I can that. We have a home in the country. I'm not here sometimes. We just happen to be back for the Super Bowl. My husband was going to watch it in the city. So, you know, it is what it is. Like if I have a patient that I can't see personally, I have a network of doctors. I've always been very collegial that I could call one of my colleagues and say, I'm so sorry. Do you mind seeing this patient? Just like I had one of my dental school classmates, Susan Prater, she's in Florida. She said, hey, you know, do you mind seeing my patient for suture removal? Like no one else is going to do this for him. So having that collegial relationship has been helpful to sort of like not have to be on 24/7. As far as like this level of compassion, service, excellence, networking, this is Manhattan. Like to do a startup fee for service practice in New York City, you really have to have, in my opinion, a following, a reputation, something that you like, some core thing that you can rely on, because it's a saturated market. You know, I think it's a little hard to understand the true sort of like ratio because so many people travel in for work, but in parts of Midtown, the ratio is 1 to 250. And like best case scenario is like 1 to 900 in some of the neighborhoods. So it's like, well, all my patients are coming from other doctors. What makes me better? I'm not open evenings. I'm not open weekends. The fees are the fees. What makes me good enough to say, you're going to do that? And some of my patients will come in like, oh, but are you open here on Saturday or are you here on an evening? And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm with my family. Totally understand if it's not the right fit. And they're like, you know what? I'll move around my day to keep coming.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And then I know when we were talking about the marketing, you talked about, are you working with a marketing agency right now or no?
Yeah, Wondrist. So Wondrist agency, part of what I loved about them, first and foremost, in a saturated market, I think that their eye for design, their branding is really beautiful. I drew my logo in Canva, but this is like a simplified embroiderable version of it. It's a little bit more complex than this, but I came up with a version of it in Canva. They really cleaned it up for me. I told them like what I wanted the vibe to be, like this like elevated New York City. And they put together a really beautiful brand package. I love our colors. The colors informed the interior design of the practice. People compliment sort of like the visuals quite a bit. And then the other thing that I really love about Wonderist is they have, I don't know if they still call it the funnels, but we haven't done any marketing yet. We're going to maybe eventually start, I guess, when I don't really need to, but right now, but we will. If you spend X amount of dollars on Google Ads, it's tracking each patient. The numbers are tracked. You can see they're like in Open Dental. The software is integrated so that what we've done on that patient is apparent. So you know the ROI, $500 of Google AdWords yielded $12,000 of treatment, whatever that is. Like, again, I'm really into metrics, partly because I'm a very intuitive person. I'm not analytical, and I know that about myself. So I work with Wonderist for these marketing metrics. I work with my operations manager for ROI of the things that we do in office, clinical and marketing, like the ground marketing baskets. She just put a sheet of paper in front of me. Each of the doctor baskets cost $48.60. Each of the small business baskets cost $20.19.
Interesting.
But other people do this for me. I work with HDA, which does like accounting. And they're bookkeepers. They're a team of, dozens of accountants out in Ohio working with hundreds of dentists around the country. And I was just talking to my Henry Schein rep, Alan Whitall, about integrating my Schein ordering with Method, which is part of Unified Smiles, which is an ordering platform. And again, it's like tracking how much we're spending. It gives us the historical spending. It gives us the pricing for a multitude of vendors. And I let them know, I'm really trying to dial in overhead and making sure that we're looking at ROI properly. And I'm not good at this, so we're going to be using Method. And Alan luckily has experience with it through Tend. He outfitted all the Tend offices in the city. He used to use Method. I was introduced to Unified Smiles and Method. It's included with Ideal Practices Mastery. So my startup consultants were Ideal Practices. I met them through Rob Montgomery, my attorney. So again, when I had introduced myself to him, it's the first thing you have to do. You have to come up with your legal entity, because your legal entity is going to sign your lease, and then you can do everything else. So I sent him, Rob, the agreement with Breakaway. And I'm a big believer in paying for advice. If you can pay someone for their expertise and their brain, you're just multiplying your own talents, your own knowledge. So I've had executive coaches. I have weekly therapy. I am always paying other people for their help, for their advice, for their support. So I had said to Rob, here's the Breakaway agreement. I never signed a contract ever without an attorney looking at it, including my first job right out of dental school. It's one of the things I tell every dentist that's graduating. I know it's hard. We all don't have a lot of money. Wait tables, do whatever you have to do, but pay a lawyer to look at that contract.
Yeah.
You can make some really expensive, life-altering mistakes signing a bad contract. So I send Rob this very simple thing. I'm like, I'm sure there are no notes. It's a single page, but I'm never going to sign anything without someone looking at it. So he had said, Arti, having spoken with you, I think you should talk to Ideal Practices. They have all their doctors choose a vision of how they want to give back. All of their doctors pick some way to give back. And because that was something that I was already doing, he's like, I think they're going to speak your language more. And they did. And I think Scott Loon is a genius. Breakaway is a genius. That Ideal Practices already had built in this language of what it means to have an impact and to give back meaningfully. Made me decide to work with them. My consultant there is Elizabeth Muldrig. She's great. We're like besties. We're going to be in Charleston first week in March. So I'm going to see them all soon for our Mastery Summit. And we're on our little Facebook group. And, some of the Facebook groups can be a little bit toxic. And I've talked to Ruben about this. It's like the people that are on there who have time to post, some of them obviously are so generous with their time. They're so amazing. Best case scenario, oftentimes with some of the comments are, it's one person who's done it one time. And this is something Jamie Amos, who's behind Ideal Practices, he used to be there, would say, you don't really want advice from the peanut gallery. You want advice from the person who's done it 500 times, 800 times, 2,000 times. Like, let's talk to the person who's done it a bunch and knows how to do it well. So that's sort of my MO. I'm not asking so many individuals for advice. I pay people for really great advice.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So then with the companies you mentioned, what's been some of the best companies you've worked with and some of the ones that didn't work with you well, or they were just the worst companies to you?
That's a good question. And we did talk about this because I had asked you, what do your listeners want to hear? Like, what is meaningful for them to hear about? And I know that's something that people want to hear. I don't have a great answer for what companies didn't work for me. I think part of why is Ideal Practices has vetted companies. So they're giving me 3 IT companies. I'm talking to all 3 IT companies. And I have now a personal relationship. Like, Ruben and I have a call every month or two where we just chit chat and I'm asking him about business. Like he has a huge business. So
Yeah.
our course is quite a machine and he's read a lot of management books and we text and like I sent him my sweatshirts and he sent me their water bottles. And I've become friendly with Laura and Mally and Michael who are at Wonderist. And again, like have a texting relationship. I'm meeting them in Charleston. They're going to be there at our Mastery Summit. And we're going to go and have some rooftop drinks before we see everyone else. And so I really can't say that there was a vendor that I did not like. Ideal set me up with great people. I got to pick the best of great people. They help manage the relationships to make sure the relationships are successful. And I really only work with people that I end up having kind of this personal connection with. So having said all that, you asked me who I worked with. I started with Rob Montgomery for my all my like dental legal work. I worked with Reed Risley, who's part of like Practice Real Estate Group, and he helped me find my space, made sure the letter of intent was keyed in so we're not wasting a ton of money. New York City landlords being what they are, still spent $20,000 negotiating the lease. Yeah. So, and again, like one day, $20,000 won't be a lot, but when you're building a business, it is a lot of money. My bank was Citizens. At that time, Ideal Practices had just closed a loan with Citizens Bank, and they don't have a healthcare product anymore. But I talked to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, talked to a few other people. I think now Huntington's was really great to talk to as well. Danny Camerasano has left Huntington's and is now, I think it's called Provide. And I've set up a few of my colleagues with Provide. They're willing to lend $1 million or more, often to existing practices. So there are better products out there, unfortunately, than like Bank of America and stuff. Like Bank of America wants to give you $500,000 if you're in the heart of Manhattan or you're out in Kentucky. It doesn't matter. Like a dental practice is supposed to cost X amount of dollars, and that's it. I ended up borrowing $750,000. Luckily, Ideal had just closed a loan with Citizens. They were kind of like, let's repackage this for a new doctor, you know, has experience, has some like liquid assets saved. I've been a dentist for 15 years now. So I was a good candidate for that kind of borrowing. And I built a 5 operatory practice. I didn't want to be in a position where a lot of startup practices are 3, 4 ops. Like to have 2 doctors and 2 hygienists, you really need 5 chairs. You need 1 overflow chair. So the goal was to have this be the right amount of space for at least 5 years, maybe 10. Even in the thing that really dragged out the lease negotiation was being it like the exit strategy. If I were to outgrow this space, then what would it take? The landlord wanted somebody with $1 million of liquid assets. And I'm like, a young dentist is not going to have $1 million of cash to sign it. I don't have that. I don't know why you think the next person's supposed to have that. So, that was, it was interesting. So Reed Risley was great. Great guy. Rob Montgomery has been amazing. After that, it was working with Ideal Practices that Rob Montgomery put me in touch with. They charge, it's close to $60,000, but I've seen $100,000 mistakes. So to me, it's like the peace of mind, the advice. Again, I'm really willing to pay people for their advice. And I've been asked for a lot of advice. And Dr. Avi who was on your podcast not too long ago, had said, have you thought about starting a coaching business? And I'm like, I might. Like, I paid a lot for my advice. And if people keep asking me for advice, like at the end of the day, your advice is worth something. So anyway, he's great, by the way. Avi's really interesting. He's doing something dentistry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so Ideal Practices has been great. They hold your hand through the whole thing, having that peace of mind, like, here's what's going on. Is this okay? Before we signed the lease, Mike Garee with Ideal Practices flew out here, looked at the space, said, we absolutely need to push back on having access from below. And I had to open up the ceilings of the vacant space below me to plumb for nitrous, plumb for, our med gas and our vacuum and all of that. Chose the spot in the basement where all of the mechanicals would go. So for Ideal to send a human being here to look at it and say, no, we're pushing back on this part of the lease, or otherwise you're going to have to raise your floors. Like, I wouldn't have known that. Like, who's going to tell me that? So they also need to bring in the contractors to bid out the space before I sign the lease. The contractor I ended up working with, Pat Black Precision, amazing guy, super, super busy in Manhattan. He's helping a friend of mine with her space a block south of me. And again, in terms of being collegial, we're like, we can see each other's emergencies. I'm so glad you're here. We can meet for coffee or grab lunch. And he's a really wonderful guy. I was kind of had this vision for a practice, and he's like, we'll figure it out. Every step of the way, we figured it out. I was like, I don't want any direct lighting. And he was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, he still made me get can lights in all the operatories, but I'm like, I don't want a patient leaning back looking at can lights. All the light washes walls and ceilings. There's 2 switches. They're both on dimmers, but he's like, you need the can lights. And I do use the can lights for shade selection. So I'm glad he made me get them. But all my zany ideas he had to execute on, which I'm grateful for. IT, Dark Horse, they've been great. Again, whatever my zany ideas have been, that there's a screen at the foot of the patient, a screen on the ceiling, 2 screens in the back, that I'm taking intraoral photos, that I want the camera to automatically upload pictures, that my SLR camera to upload pictures to the screen in front of the patient. Like anything that I come up with, and they've helped me figure it out. So that's been really great.
Yeah. With Dark Horse, really quick, how much is it? Like, did you get the whole package, or like, what does the package even look like?
I
How does that
did.
work?
I mean, they outfitted the whole practice, and I wish I could tell you, I think I paid them $750 a month right now to manage everything. So our cloud backup is with them. Our security, sort of like, ransomware security things are with them. They make sure that we're HIPAA compliant at all times. All the computers are updated. They manage our email system. Our email is all encrypted, HIPAA compliant. So I work with people who make sure that we are following all the rules. So like all of us are HIPAA OSHA certified through smart training. All of my team is onboarded through HR for Health, following local, state, federal guidelines. So Dark Horse is in here just like making sure that we're good. It's worth it to me. And again, like if I'm ever integrating anything, they're here to just like help figure it out, whatever it is.
Why'd you go? Because you said Ideal Practice gave you 3 options. Why'd you go with Dark Horse compared to the other?
I mean, I couldn't even tell you who else I was introduced to before, but there was, I think, a company here, Dental High Tech. Great. A lot of people are happy with them. Dark Horse they're like slick. Like their product is like, it's put together. Like you can visualize it. There's a process in place. You talk to this person, they pass you on to this person. Like I like systems. I like visuals. I like organization. I actually don't know how I met Ruben. It might've been through Instagram. Like I tagged them and he commented and I was like, by the way, who is this? And it's like the actual CEO of the company. It's obviously like that's often what it is, But
the deciding factor for you was mainly that you were able to talk to the CEO, or?
No, I met Ruben way after they had even like come in. So that ends up being, for some reason, the way that things work out for me. I don't even know how I became close to Laura, but Laura also introduced me to the founder of Cocoa Floss, Crystal, who is amazing. So Crystal, stopped by the practice when she was visiting New York City with her family, like her kids and husband came over to the practice before we were open, very much still a construction site. I told Pat, like, this person who's like the founder of Cocoa Floss, which I know you don't know what it is, but it's like a big deal to me. It's going to come visit. Can we just like clean it up? And I mean, when I say it was a construction site, it was a mess. And they just made it all like perfectly presentable, even though there's like walls that need to be finished.
Yeah.
So Laura had introduced me to her. Again, I don't know how I connected with Laura so much, but I feel like these are people who have sort of a similar energy to me, and I enjoy talking.
Nice. Okay. So then one of the last questions I wanted to ask you is, throughout this whole process, I guess from the moment you decided to open your practice to right now, what's been some of your biggest struggles or fails or pitfalls?
Oh, so many. That's a great question. Negotiating the lease was difficult. I did get to know my landlord personally and also have a texting relationship with him. And that really helped sort of solve some of the future pitfalls that could have happened. I think a big piece of advice would be get straight to the decision maker ASAP, make yourself likable, but really hold your ground. The other piece of advice is I talked to an IP attorney before I settled on my name, and he had said to me, Flatiron Dental is a generic term. Flatiron geographic, dental descriptive for what you do. You can't trademark it. Other people can use a very similar name. You can't stop them. And I'm like, I don't care. People come here to see me, but I've been waging now this trademark battle for a while. Another practice opened with a very similar name, sent me a cease and desist. I called their practice to say, let's have a conversation. Like, clearly something's happening. Maybe your patients are getting confused. If there's something that I can put into my messaging, onto my Google page or your Google, like, let's talk about it. And the doctor did not come to the phone, told the receptionist to talk to his attorney. And I was like, okay, I just, coming from the South, like, Georgian dentists are old school. Like those connections run deep. And New York City is kind of a different place. So That's fine. I have an amazing IP attorney, Jacqueline Einen. We had to fight this claim for a trademark with the U.S. Patent Office. Then they threatened civil litigation. So my litigator is Laura. Yeah. So Offit Kerman is this, and she like teaches IP at Fordham Law. She's the head of her IP program. So again, if I have a fight to fight, I'm going to hire the biggest guns and ask the best out there for their advice. So it's come back up. They've, filed for a supplemental trademark. In 5 years, they can elect to a principal trademark. And I will have to, again, make a case for why that shouldn't be allowed. From my perspective, I had this name first. They opened first. I had a lot of delays in starting construction. The building got renovated, going through change of use with the landlord. I'm not threatened. I have this sort of abundance mindset, I think. Yeah. But a lot of people are coming from scarcity and from fear. And so the door on sort of a collaborative conversation with that group of people has closed for me. I think there was a lot of sort of bullying tactics of sending those certified letters to my associate job, a lawyer calling my associate practice, telling the office manager there's litigation against me, I need to come to the phone. And luckily that practice knew I was opening a practice, were very supportive, didn't think that I was a terrible person, but it could have gone a very different way. So again, you cannot have enough legal advice, I think. Don't try to do these things yourself and hire good people. They hired someone that did not know what they were doing, which is also extremely costly. Sometimes people who don't know what they're doing can cost you a lot of money because you have to keep responding to them. Even though at the end of the day, they lost, they're going to lose again. It's like such a futile battle. So that's been some of the pitfalls in the practice. Like I've had an executive coach for many years, and the core values of the practice that I sort of zeroed in on are compassion, integrity, excellence. And so even in those moments, I try to extend compassion to this group of doctors that feels very litigious. I have compassion for people who are coming from a place of fear. But at the end of the day, like integrity matters a great deal to me, and I'm going to stand by what's right. So remaining true to those core values, what it looks like in the practice in measurable terms. We talk about it as a team, what it means to treat people compassionately, to pursue excellence, to have integrity. Like remaining true to that is also quite a challenge. It's ongoing work, like daily work.
Nice. Awesome, Arti. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure.
My
I feel like
pleasure.
We can keep going. But before that, if anybody wants to reach out to you or has any questions or concerns, where can they find you?
I am probably the easiest found on Instagram. Flatiron Dental is the handle. And I check my messages. I'm happy to talk to anyone before I start my coaching business.
After that, we don't know. Yeah. No, but awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes below. So look for her name and then go to the show notes below and check out those links. And Arti, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, real quick, before you go on to the next episode or change the podcast, I wanted to tell you about Brenda. Maybe you might have met Brenda. See, every office has a Brenda, or maybe you are the Brenda. And Brenda's been running this dental practice like a warship, like a Navy ship for 15 years. She can schedule 6 recalls while holding a conversation about Mrs. Thompson's bridge work. And she knows the scent of expired fluoride from 20 feet away. But Brenda has a dark secret. She never once compared supply prices. Not once. When the bill shows up, she signs, and that's it. When the rep drops by with bagels, she smiles. But last week, a hygienist casually asked Brenda, "Hey, why do our gloves cost more than an entire patient copay?" Brenda laughed. Then she opened the invoice, and for the first time, she flinched. What happens when the queen of systems, aka Brenda, realizes she's been quietly bleeding cash on every single order? We'll find out next week on what Brenda is doing. But don't wait for Brenda to wake up. You can check your own prices right now. Go to net32.com/dental marketer and just search one product and compare your supplies. That's net32.com/dental marketer.